Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Supper Time Show again. We have special guests tonight. My name is Rudy. I'm your host tonight. We have Jake Abdullah, Datuk Jake Abdullah. We have John H.D. and also Rithan. Welcome, guys. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah,
Thanks for roping in together. Yeah.
Tonight's topic, I wanted to touch on careers in music. And since three of you have been and actually are still in having careers in music, I wanted to tap on your experiences and find out where music in the future provides, what kind of jobs music can provide in the future, and also what kind of experiences you have, what kind of advices you can share with people out there who's actually studying for music, and what can they do with that qualification of theirs. So I think with your experience, this would help a lot of people who's watching. Okay, so if you don't mind, I would like to go straight into the questions.
Sure.
Very much. And when I throw the questions out to you guys, it's very much free for all. Anyone can just come in and answer and give their 2 cents and whatnot. You know, we're just having like a chit chat. All right, first question. What got you guys started in music, and what kind of instruments did you play, if you did pick up any?
I mean, Rithan's got his instruments at the back there, so you know what.
But was guitar something that you picked up?
I mean, really, I'm not a musician, so I can't comment.
Hey, turntables is an instrument.
Seriously, I think I let the musicians speak.
In Berkeley College of Music.
You see, that's why we have time as our internet Wi-Fi.
Rithan, Rithan, you should talk about your. I rate Rithan as one of the top guitarists I've seen, But
Definitely.
So I'm not letting him speak,
So Rithan, when did you start with guitar?
He's frozen.
It's frozen. I see him now.
He's frozen again.
Okay, we asked John. John.
Yeah.
John.
Did you play any instruments?
I started off with a bit of guitar. I mean, that pretty much got me started with writing songs for the band back in the day. So it was guitar. I was absolutely hopeless at the piano. My parents gave up on that. So I'm quite fortunate because the guitar was the one thing I didn't break in the house. Like the piano was completely destroyed. So I stuck with guitar.
So we lost Rithan pretty early.
Yeah, I think he's just gonna patch in back. We'll add him
I don't play any instruments. I can play a little bit of percussions. I can play basic guitar, but that's not the reason I got into music. I got into music because my parents were really poor and I had to put food on the table for myself. So I got into DJing very young. So that's how I got into music. Yeah.
But like I said, turntables actually is a musical instrument, if you think about it.
I mean, it's got more advanced these days. What the guys are doing some amazing work. Electronic beats just improve. These days they don't even use turntables. You see, so CDJs and it's everything reads off a time code and stuff. So this is brilliant. I think that's progress. But starting with music was not a choice. Was not a what do you call that? A automatic choice. It was a necessity for me to actually earn a living. So that was it. Yeah. Either that or I could have ended up in jail. It's like a real story. This is true. Yeah.
Good choice. Rithan, are you there? Can you hear us? Wow.
I can.
Internet is really bad. Yeah, I can. So wanted to ask you on the instruments that you play. When did you start picking up the guitar?
Maybe you should use your phone.
I was always exposed to music on my mom's side of the family. Okay, hold on. Let me try and get back to the thing downstairs and see whether the line's better or not. Okay.
All right, man.
5 seconds.
Catch you in a bit. 3 minutes. All right. Okay, back to Jake. And this was actually a question which I had. Like, did your parents support your choice of being active in music? And you mentioned that you had to go
Yeah.
in,
So,
you know?
I mean, this is back in the 80s, this is 1980. So I was
Mm.
informed, and I mean, no parent would want their kid to go and work in a club at night. But I guess I did it because when I in hindsight, when you think about it, I'm glad I pursued that because if not, I would have ended up as a disgruntled electrical engineer, probably working in some semiconductor industry or what. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like my grandfather was an electrical engineer, and everybody wanted me to emulate him. But the truth of the matter is, my parents back in the day, they just it was very different. They, as long as you got a stable job, they were fine. DJing was not a stable job, but um, I excelled in it very fast. So I started to support myself. So at the age of 15, I was going to school and working as a DJ in a club already. So were they supportive? Well, they didn't have any choice, but
Mm.
I always wanted to make them proud. Yeah.
Yeah, and look where you are now. I mean, it's amazing that I hear these kind of stories back in the 80s, and then you see where you are now. John, what
Yeah.
about you? What about your parents? Did they? I mean, we know the kind of music that you play, right? Did they
Yeah.
say anything?
Um, I think I mean, I come from a very traditional family, and my so naturally when they even heard that I even had a band,
Yeah.
they were already starting to have like the shakes. They were thinking of the usual stigmas that are attached to having a band or having or getting involved with music. The usual stigmas like oh, there's he's going to get into drugs, he's going to get into all kinds of bad
Uh-huh.
habits. There's his future is ruined, stuff like that. But it's just very old stigmas attached. But I just decided, in the long story short, they didn't quite agree with it. But they weren't very vocal about it either. So they just wanted to observe and see what would come out of that. And yeah, they pretty much let me run the course.
Because must be quite difficult because you were very much in the underground scene, right?
Yeah,
Playing
that's
those
right.
kind of music, and the what rap the underground scene gets. So I'm sure they were like, there was times when they
Exactly.
were worried, Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand, but you took the road less traveled, and
Yeah.
and like I said, look, Jake, look where you are right now, right? All this like led up to something. Now I want to ask this question: Is music education important? And if you did have this kind of education, how far did you guys manage to study, or how did you study to get where you are in terms of
I
music?
mean, it is formal music education background,
Yeah.
but I guess it's going to be the deciding factor between being good and great. A lot of people can be good in music, but I think the ability to be able to fundamentally understand, or go into the microscopic, or go into the depth of music, you need to have a formal education. That's going to be the deciding factor between the grades. If you talk about if you talk about the absolute grades, from jazz to rock to, I think most of them have a formal, unless you're naturally talented or you're a
Mm.
prodigy. But music education is important. But again, like I said, we need to also understand what is a music education.
Yeah.
So in this age and time, it can be there. There are so many other breakdown from there itself. These days, you can study music and actually study production of music,
Yeah.
or managing, or so various factors. Yeah. So I guess it's really important to be able to study something formally in your head.
Cool. Cool. Rithan's back. Rithan, this question we have is on music education. So, is it important, and how far did you go? I mean, yeah, we know that you went to university and studying music. You can share a little bit.
I think when I first, I think you can never learn less. You can there's no such thing as learning less or whatever. Knowledge is power. But and I kind of got this on the end of my music education, because when I went to university, I was like, whoa, like everyone's like was similar to like me, like they like to practice, they enjoyed music and stuff like that. But I kind of did this huge leap. I didn't do music theory when I was young. I just straight went to university. I did this foundation program. So instead of studying at that particular time, I was like really busy practicing and performing, because that's what I really wanted to do. But I think when I came to my third or fourth year, when I started getting to, blocks like what Abang was mentioning just now, not all of us are like Paul McCartney or Jimi Hendrix, where we're just born with a prodigious talent or whatever. You get me? So like through music, through going to music college, I met a lot of different people from different genres of music. Like people into jazz, people into bossa nova, people into bebop, reggae, you name it, right? So, and that was a really good form of networking and also learning the different cultures in their music genre. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're metal, you obviously have like distortion and it's very aggressive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you sit in the classical, was that a pianist? Like, he's all about finesse. It's all about making sure his execution and his technicality is like up to par, kind of thing. So, I mean, I wish I can still study and do a master's or something, because I believe there's always room for improvement and learning things as we go. Yeah.
I actually have a different opinion. Sorry, Rudy. I actually have a different opinion, a little bit from Rithan. I do agree. It's a very conforming society which has embraced or which has accepted the norm. Funnily enough, yesterday I was reading about Google talking about they are doing away with 4-year degrees and coming up with specialization. So I think for me, the music, the education needs to fit the generation.
Yeah.
So do we actually need 4 years, like Rithan, you're saying, talking about masters and stuff like, do we, or should we focus into specialization straight away? I think that, to me, the music education must come in the formidable ages, which is like, from Form 3 to Form 5, music classes. And then the specialization begins later. So it could be a 6 months thing, it could be an 8-month thing. These days with Coursera and stuff, like you can pick up stuff very fast. I took a production course on Coursera for free. So I think the music education now needs to be able to follow the momentum or follow the short attention span of people. Otherwise, we are stuck with a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year. So even an MBA is questionable now. Is it really relevant? So are we actually following the times, or are we doing it just because we have to do it? So to me, like me working with you, Rudy, or accomplished drummer, or an accomplished guitarist for 8 weeks to be able to, you know what I mean? So you're focused on actually coming out with or actually achieving a goal, rather than us actually embracing a one-size-fits-all syllabus. I don't think it's actually working. Of course, the fundamentals are important, but it all depends. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like there's so many online courses right now that is you actually really learn a lot from there. And although they come up with certification, which is of course it's not your university qualification, still a certain kind of qualification. But I think you're right. The universities or all the higher institutions that are giving this kind of education should actually relook at the future and then see what should they really specialize or still keep to the same layout of masters, PhD, and whatnot. It takes time. I know time will actually give you more experience into that matter, but think about it right now. The times actually have changed. We actually can learn very fast. Knowledge is at the fingertips. You can learn everything all from your laptop or your phone. So
Precisely the point. Precisely the point. Yeah. So what we're talking about is like even like the pandemic, the MCO, the lockdown and stuff like that, and we're doing it. We're communicating with the simple fact we're doing this webinar online. I mean, most of us have decent internet connection. You know what I mean? But again, like I said, are we actually addressing the needs of the consumer? I think that's the pivotal point here. What is the problem we are trying to solve?
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
problem here.
I totally agree with that. Like, there was just one of our conversations we used to have, I think, back a couple of years back. You mentioned that it's not how much you know, it's like what you know and what you do with it.
No, it's not
And
how much you know, it's how much you do with what you know.
yeah, that line, and that line kind of like struck me, like spot on. It's like you can continue to learn and learn. And I'm not discounting learning, because some people are really passionate about education and deciphering it and understanding where it comes from. But like you take an artist like Kurt Cobain, for example, right? And he writes "Smell Like Teen Spirit." It's only 4 chords, and to me, that's like the actual punk rock song, because like that's only 4 chords for the entire thing. But how he dresses it up, how he puts the melody, how he subdivides it to bridges and choruses, it's like totally amazing, right? You don't need to have a degree. I mean, you can have a degree, you can have a master's, PhD, but you probably will never be able to write a song like what's that? "Smell Like Teen Spirit," right? This is like one of those magical moments, right? But at the same time, if you have a little bit of understanding and comprehension about harmony and rhythms, you might take something from John Coltrane's Giant Step, for example, right? That particular piece like modulates about 12 times, goes through all the keys, and it takes a little bit of understanding towards music to know what the performer is going through in terms of harmony and rhythm and stuff like that. You get me? So
Yeah.
But again,
John, what do you think about it?
Sorry?
What do you think about this?
I think music education, just give the broad strokes, let everyone understand, just give everyone the building blocks to understanding music, its applications culturally. I think one thing beautiful about music is that it brings everyone together, and it's also a very, very wonderful kind of journey for a lot of people. I think we just need to introduce the journey of music to people, and if they find if they find their interest and passions in music, then I totally agree with what Jake said, which was, build platforms that work with that particular age groups. I mean, there's no point. You need to make it relevant to the audience, right? Because there's no way you're going to win a kid to do a course when they have the attention span of a TikToker, for example.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, John, because that to me right now is relevant. TikTok is relevant. It's supply and demand. I walked into the mall and there's this phone accessory shop now selling stands with lights, and everybody has them, and everybody says it's all ridiculous. But the truth of the matter is, you have to understand. We can't keep saying like, oh, back in my day. No, it's back in your day now. It's gone.
Yeah.
The new generation is talking about, look, I want to be a star. I want my 10 minutes of fame. I want my 15 seconds of fame. I want my 30 seconds of fame. So what this means also is there is a compromise in quality a little bit on the music. And you have seen it, suddenly like pop music is, I'm not discounting anything, but pop music and stuff like that does not have the brilliance of 60s, 70s, 80s. However, they are reaching more people. They are, to me, they are impressing the young. I've got 12, 13-year-olds doing TikTok. I'm sure your daughter is doing TikTok and stuff like that, right? So again, like I said, when we talk about music, we also have to understand the concept of media. So what actually they're trying to do is very, very simple. Is they are 15 seconds in the limelight.
True. I have a question from one of our audiences, Amira. So she says, do you think the local mentality towards music education is making it hard for youths and everyone in general to explore their passion for music?
I'm trying to understand your question, Amira, here, and I think we are generalizing here. Most of the time, we are worried about what people say. Now, if I go back to from where the first question you asked me, what do my parents think? If I had to worry about what my parents thought, I would think that 1,000 people in Malaysia now wouldn't have jobs because I went against the grain. So if you're fundamentally worried about what the local mentality is, and even in these times, it's very hard for us to say it's local because we are local. Back in the day, 1996, you're talking about when internet just came, we didn't even understand. These days, within a second, 15 seconds, we are already, we are able to understand foreign. In fact, the word global doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
So if you're asking about local mentality towards music education, I think the government needs to substantially drive music as an economic potential source, like what South Korea did.
South Korea.
So, yeah. So to me, if you can explore your passion for music, but the underlying factor here is very simple: can you monetize it or not? I think that's what you're trying to ask. And yes,
Yeah.
we can. But to monetize it, there needs to be a change of mind here. Mindset needs to improve.
Yeah. And
Because I
Jake,
think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to music students. Like when they pursue a music degree, it's very much focused on either being a star or a performer, and most of the time, passion is a really strong word. Right? Like, if you like something, you're gonna pursue it no matter what, no matter whether it's money or not, right? And most of the times, you can separate the men and the boys from there, right? Some people go, "I give up. I'm just going to get a job," like me, for example. But the idea is to diversify, right? Because if let's say, for example, you're not the lead guitarist of a big rock band, or you're not lead singer for a big rock band, or whatsoever, you can be behind the scenes. You can help the scene. You can start organizing shows. You can start printing T-shirts, right? You can start teaching. The possibilities is a lot. I think the idea is to wake up every morning being happy on what you're doing, right? Yeah, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to teach
me. I think you absolutely nailed it. I think the most important thing is we are so worried about what people think about us. We are so worried about. In fact, I will encourage, if I have kids. My daughter is 15 years old and she was doing anime, and I said, you know what, you should stop school and just focus on anime. Because the truth of the matter is, if you're passionate about it, we are so worried about stigma. We're so worried about what my neighbor will say, what this will say. So I retrospect and I start to think back about my parents actually gave me the opportunity to do what I wanted to do because they couldn't afford anything else, But I feel blessed because of that. So just to echo what you're saying, Rithan, which is the truth, you don't want to be a 50-year-old man working in a company, probably a COO, but so disgruntled, I'd rather be earning 1/10 of that, doing exactly what I want, So the passion, I think is primal here.
and I think, Jake, you brought up another point. Doing something that you like, very passionate for you, but nowadays, and I don't know whether it's still there, but parents will say, no, okay, you can do music, but you have to have a safety net plan first. Study first, then you do music.
Yeah, that's going to change. I do agree with you. That's going to change. I mean, to me, very good point. Because as parents, we are worried, right?
Yeah.
But when I think back and think back about how you guys have achieved, you all have got formidable careers, and we didn't do so badly, Me, I never had after Form 5. I never had a formal education till much later in life. I did okay, I think, because our natural instinct is to survive, So we can go two ways. It's forked. We can go the way where it is following the grain, or we can go against the grain and do exactly what we want. So I don't think what is a safety net? A safety net is a house, a car, and this is conforming. You see, it's conforming to what people want. So my belief is, I think we should encourage the youth to follow their dreams. We'll have more dreamers, more creative people in the industry.
Definitely. Now, Jake, I want to move on to something very historical. You witnessed the birth of hip hop in Malaysia. Can you share with us how it came about and who was
I
involved?
actually cannot put a timeline to it, because when I was playing, we called it black music. You know what I mean? Oh, it's black music. music. So yeah, so I remember it was 1988, and I won the first Malaysia DJ contest. 88. Now, can you imagine? That's how.
Wow.
That's what 30 years.
8 years
30.
old, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and I formed a band called Crash Course. This is in 1988. First hip hop band. So yeah, and to me it was not only about the music, but it was also about the fashion. It was the culture, like Rithan was saying. There's a whole 360 around it. It's just fantastic. And what I liked about hip hop was it can be positive, but it moves a lot of people. So we saw some amazing bands come out from there. So yeah, and hip hop is still people talk about hip hop as music, but to me hip hop is culture. You know what I mean? And Joe Flizzo has done really well with that, and they've got lots of, you can see culturally also hip hop has grown. There's Tamil bands, there's Chinese, there's Malay hip hop has grown so well. So yeah. How was I involved? Well, I guess we just started it. Like, actually, it's an amazing story because, when we first started rapping, we were and people were saying, "What are these guys doing?" It's just amazing. What are these guys doing? It's called a rap. It's called a rap. Yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays, you see, like music has become like sort of like genreless. It's hard to categorize any kind of music nowadays because it's a blend of pop, hip hop, rap, rock. Dance, it's everything in one, and it's hard because if you want to genreize one kind of music, one kind of song, what kind of song, it's actually wrong. What's that word? There's evolution to music already. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's
amazing because we've spoken, Rithan and I have spoken about this so many times, John and I, and the problem is, most musicians want to feel elite and at the same time also revered. That means they want to be, I'm damn cool, and you know what I mean. I'm not pop, but the bottom line is, if you want public acclaim, you're gonna be popular. You mentioned John Coltrane, you mentioned Jimi Hendrix and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, they're brilliant, but they're very, very niche in their own. Not maybe Hendrix more, but again, like I said, but if you have to give kudos to all this, like the K-pop and the Japanese and all that, who have broken that, and
yeah.
not easy. When you think about it, it's not easy to move the genre. And we say, I like it, don't like, but it's not easy. To me, am fascinated by that. How they've driven a culture.
There's this guy, his name is Siva Ramanathan. He said, "Yo, Jake, good memories lah. The early 90s scene bass."
Siva is a Leeds fan. He's just so excited that Leeds are back in the. Yeah, but Siva, hey man. Yeah. I know his own family. Good guy here.
Rithan, I want to ask you. I mean, you're a guitarist and you play sort of like rhythm section, solos, and everything. I'm sure you have like a certain creative process when you compose songs, and of course, with your experience in ICOM, and to hone you as further as a musician, what is your creative process? Do you have a process?
Okay, so technically, like when you put education into it, there's always a process, right? You get an intro, you get a verse, you get a nice musical germ, you get a hook, but oftentimes this is art lah. Like there's no such thing as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I had the opportunity to like actually talk to Dominic Miller and Sting about this, because like like songwriters, Sting, I'm like, oh my god, I got to ask him this question. So I was like, so how do you do it? Like, no, how do you write a song? And this is not exactly, but this is what he kind of told me. Right? He was like, I don't know. I wish I knew. Right? And it made sense, because like until today, like I walk into my room, I sit down, I'm gonna write a song today. And this is today's the day. 3 hours, I'm gonna complete something. It's amazing. But you start writing, go, oh shit, I don't know how to go from here. So there's no real process, but there's inspiration, right? So what I do is I probably put a loop on and I start playing my guitar, and then after a while you get a hook or you get a line or your riff. So it starts off with a riff at first, right? And then you start building and building, start put ideas to make it work. The one thing that I kind of learned from Abang Gigi, is one of Malaysia's best guitar luthiers. He said, "Benda tu kena sampai." Masa kau main tu, benda tu kena sampai. Kalau dia tak sampai, tak sampai lah. You know, you can do whatever you want. That's true. Because when you write a riff, when you write a song, it needs to tell a story, right? It needs to make people move. And regardless of whatever it is, it could be, like I said, Giant Steps. Giant Steps has a really, it's a really good hook, right? Or let's say if you say like Miles Davis, So What? If you take Steve Vai, you take, Hendrix or whatsoever, they always had that hook. Even James, right? When he played and when he wrote Enter, it's like this hook, right? It's there. And then you start building it, you know. So I don't think there's a process, but education-wise, we can put it down. I need an intro, I need a verse, I need a bridge, I need a super chorus, I need something that people can remember lah after listening to that song.
So when you go to university, let's say in Berkeley, all right, they don't teach you how to be creative, but they teach you the tools of how to be
Yeah, so you start analyzing again. So for example, right? So let's say for example, okay, if you look into Hendrix, you start looking into what makes him Hendrix, right? So there's a lot of chordal playing, right? There are a lot of rhythm playing, right? There's a lot of R&B in it, it's a lot of Motown, right? The tone of how did they actually get the tone? It has to be a Fender Strat out of phase on the second, the fourth position, for example. So it narrows down the mysteries, right? But there's no such thing as like, contoh macam you can always write a number one hit song. For example, you have Quincy Jones, right? When you look at Michael Jackson, if there is a formula, he'll be getting number one songs until the day he dies. Right? You get me? Right?
Yeah.
You get, so it's art. At the end of the day, it's still art. And then after a while, you feel like your sound is being dated. Because when I was a kid, when I listened to Master of Puppets, I was like, oh my God, it's never going to be more heavier than this. This is heavy, man. Right? 3 years later comes this band called Korn. They're down tuning everything. I'm like, this is never going to be heavier than this. Never ever, right? Then now you have Periphery, you got Sean, you got all these bands, and I'm looking at these bands like, oh my God, when I was that age, I couldn't even play like that, right? I was just playing 2 chords. Like I was that kid in town, you get me? Because information is everywhere, right? You get me? Like when I was in school, when I wanted to learn secondary dominance, there's only one lecturer that will teach you secondary dominance, right? But today, you type secondary dominance, it's like 300,000 people teaching you how to do it. You get it? Yeah. So you just got to keep it. But the beauty or the skill is to always keep your mind open, right? So kau tak start, kau tak jadi macam orang tua tu. Tak, it has to be this way. Everything else is rubbish, right? Is to keep an open mind, what the kids are doing. Like, when Steve Vai was playing, he was doing the 7-string thing, right? Then Korn picked it up. Today you have the 8-string that's been championed by Tosin Abasi. And these kids are like, 29 years old, and they're very entrepreneurial. They have their own guitars, they have their own YouTube channel, they've got their Spotify playlist. And I'm looking like, what, man? Like, because it's different culture. But you get it?
Yeah. And we were talking about, of course, like the creative process and all, and also involved is the art and technique of it. Now, I want to ask John here. John, you are well known for your, what do you call it, Screamo vocals. You were the vocalist of with Nerve-Wreck, right? Now, I want to ask you in terms of technique. Now, is this a technique that you're using, or was there just a lot of anger in you?
Okay. Well, I think before we go into the question, I mean, I'll just give a bit of a backstory as to how I got into the band in the first place as a vocalist. So purely by accident, I was walking past the band in the midst of audition, and I stubbed my toe. They heard me right after, and I immediately got the part. I'm kidding. But to get the, I mean, there's I guess from a technique point of view, I mean, what I did was I just copied the hell out of the vocalists I loved the most in the metal genre, and then obviously I couldn't match up and to what they were putting out on their records. So I decided, okay, I'm quite comfortable with this, and I started kind of creating my own kind of style. So I think in terms of technique, it's actually drawn on from a lot of my influences. So there's I'd like to think that I project a little bit of everyone I kind of draw those inspirations from. In terms of anger, right? Oh yeah, I think it's I think even Jake will Jake will gladly agree. Like, in fact, he kind of knows how the lyric writing process is done. Jake, you want to give it a shot?
No, man, so go. You go for it.
Yeah, but the the lyric writing was actually where a lot of the anger would be put on paper. It's like through lyrics and stuff like that. But in terms of the screams and the grunts and the growls and everything, I think that was just to complement the nature of the music and the aggression. Yeah.
Cool, man. I mean, we did a few songs together, and like, you know, having
Yeah,
you on
that's
stage-
right.
having you on stage is just another level, lah.
Yeah, man.
You see,
Yeah.
that's where we look at it, like, you know, rap rock plus screamo is, I don't know what you call it, but we blend the music together and it becomes something else. So creative techniques, it's something, you know, it's subjective. There is no rules to it, like how Rithan said. It's just got to be very open-minded on it and just try it. Jake, back to you.
Right? Sorry.
Yeah.
sorry.
How did you get started at Astro? Very important question.
My daughter was born at that time in '95. I was partying in the clubs every night. So by that time, in 1985, really, it was like, 1995, it was, you know, like 15 years already. I was already spinning. I didn't want to go through the life again. I didn't want to get up, you know, you party all night, you drink all, you know, and stuff like that. So I wanted to stop that. I think that was, so I walked in, and Aflin Shauki was playing in a club with his band in my club. And he says, hey, Miasat cari DJ lah. So at that time it was called Miasat. So I said, okay. So I went there with a pair of shorts and t-shirt. And there was this Australian guy who interviewed me, and he said, he came with a pair of shorts and t-shirt. I said, wow, smart man. This is radio, so I thought you're never going to see me, right? She says, yeah, you got a face for radio, you're hired. So that's how I got the job. So that's actually how I got into Astro. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was the birth of also internet at the time. It's just amazing. I was hired as a music director for hits at the time, and somehow, like, you know, like a duck in water, I really learned the job really fast and really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Nice. But of course, like, during that time you were handling radio, which part of the job did you love the most?
It's a tough question. Very tough question, actually, because I'm trying to be as honest as possible here. I think that I was able to shape the cost of music in Malaysia at the time. And as much as, you know, people were like, oh, you know, and especially recording companies used to practically hate me because we were actually playing, you know, prior to Astro, most of the DJs were playing whatever they want. You know, I remember going to Radio 4 and with Radha Krishnan, so he was just playing whatever you want. Play whatever you want, Amja. Play whatever you want. So Astro came into the scene. We were formatted. We were understood. We were playing, you know, top 40. Where did top 40 get the name? At any one time, there's only 40 songs that are working. We researched our music, and we sort of broke a lot of new music. Rather than having 20,000 songs playing, we were playing the right amount for the demographic. But what I really liked about my job was I was able to break a lot of Malaysian bands, and I was very passionate about that. You know, from Jason Lowe to even I played even Rithan's band, Asia Voodoo Spells, and Pop Shove It, and Joe Flizzo, and John's Mistress, and you can go on. So, and I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to break Malaysian English music. So I loved that a lot. You know, I don't think the radio stations are aggressive these days driving Malaysian English music. they sort of put in the back burner and put it on the chart on a Sunday, which I detest. So again, yes, if you go back to what you said in the initial part, music has to grow because the whole infrastructure supports it. Otherwise, you're going to be having musicians playing in pubs for the rest of their lives and I don't mean this with any malice, you see. Can you imagine, during the MCO, how many of them struggle? So I guess it's up to the people in the right position to be able to support this, to be able to give them education, to be able to give them financial education. That's where, to me, I started that, but I wish that this would carry on.
Yeah, and Jake, you mentioned that part, which I think you said that you discovered a lot of groups, bands, you put them on radio, and they blew up. And I was talking to Ahmad Izam a few weeks ago on the same thing, and he mentioned also the same thing. We have to have someone. We have to have more A&R people who actually can have the vision of, like, okay, this band has this style, but we can mold them to go in a certain way and groom them to be greater than they are right now. And he says that this kind of people, there's not many of them around. Is that true?
Yeah, I think A&R is a word that's hardly used. I was an A&R manager before I joined Astro a long time ago for a recording company. I think what we need is we need people to manage careers, not be key. When I'm talking about managing, I'm talking about understanding the end-to-end of the artist. That's lacking. You asked me about how did I manage to spot all these bands, and I've always said, in 7 seconds you cannot hear the hit, then you might as well throw it out. I've had so many arguments, disagreements, even with you guys, Pop Shavit, and I remember Moods brought one of your songs and I said, it's not going to work. I was so upset. Sasi the Don, I remember I threw his CD out, but he went back and he came back with something stronger. It's the same thing, and Rithan, you were talking about the hook and stuff like that. If you're talking about, unless it's some eclectic radio station that's just focused on nerve wrack, then you need to be able to fundamentally please everybody, please the majority. So years is very important. Number 2, you must understand the business. 3 is management, because most artists are myopic. They are so close to their product, right? You need somebody externally to give them that information, externally to tell them, hey, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Maybe we should change it like this. If you're managing yourself, it's not going to work. You start to get very defensive. So Izam is right. Izam is right. You need the right people, and there were very few. I remember one notable person that I would point out is Dharani. Dharani used to manage Sudirman. He had the foresight to manage Sudirman back in the day, and I was so impressed with him. I remember what these guys were doing. They were, with Sudirman, when he won the Asia thing, they were already came out with their drinks, with their merchandise, with the So it's very smart. So I don't think we have enough managers. These days, managers are just booking shows. That's it.
True. Yeah, they're booking managers. Yeah. So in terms of, we were talking about artists and all. We want to go around to those people who graduate from a music background. What can they actually do at the moment? And Jake, you're on radio. Rithan, you're in artist management. And John, you're in head of podcast. Yeah. Are jobs really scarce now? Is it really, or is it? Is there a lot of jobs in that industry, or is it just temporary that people are saying, "Oh, I can't find any job"?
I actually think that when you come out as a graduate, it's fundamentally in this form, right? You're doing a 4-year degree and you're coming out. If I was a graduate and I told my daughter this, just go out and do anything first. Because there are certain skills that you need to acquire, right? If you come out from you get a music degree or a master's from music production and stuff, like, you don't expect to walk into some orchestra and you know what I mean? You need to learn the ropes first. That's why I'm saying our education system is flawed, because the practical happens after 4 years. You know what I mean? So yes, jobs are really scarce. Jobs that you're looking for, that you want to get, are scarce. But if you're willing to get your hands dirty And Gary Vee spoke about this. If I could go and learn from Bob Marley if he was alive, and how to get that tone, I'll do it for 2 years for free. Before even. So I guess there's a different approach to it. Why did you study music? What was your end goal? What are you trying to do? But if you're just studying music to get another job, then fundamentally you've already failed. So I think there's so much you can do with music. You can be a DJ, you can be an announcer, you can be a music manager, you can be behind the scenes, you can be a production engineer, you can be like Rithan managing bands, you can be like John doing podcasts. You know why? Because you cannot say there's no more there is scarce, because now more than ever the platforms are so many.
Yeah.
How is that? You honestly, to me, you can be a TikTok manager. As much as we hate to say it, it is there. But are you willing to find it or not?
Yeah. Rithan and John, what do you think about this?
Fundamentally, we gotta look at what education is, lah. It serves a purpose, right? You gotta take X amount of expertise when you go through a program, right? Obviously, like, this is the culture of education, and I agree. Like, when you're in school, I was a science student because the only reason why I was a science student is because I didn't want to study geography, because I'm really bad with like roads and stuff like that. So I thought, study geography lah, right? And study science lah, right? Then when you're in science, you're like, why do I need maths for? Why do I need to study history again, right? So like, they don't really mold you to your expertise, right? Because the truth of the matter is this, right? Even as a musician, when you study the syllabus in music, they start talking about the romantic period, the classical period, and then you got the cool jazz period. And you start studying Mozart, and you're like, these guys are all dead. Nobody wants to listen to right? Which is great to know about it. So in my first year, I was like, I wanted to be like James Hetfield. I want to be like Kirk Hammett. I want to solo. I want to rock out. I have the tone of this gigantic monster, because that was building to the dream that I wanted. Thank God I had a little bit of confidence. Like, you know what? I know I'm never going to be a great jazz musician. I know I'm never going to be a great bebopper or whatever. But I know for a fact I'm an okay rocker, right? And I'm just gonna like work on what I'm really strong at, right? Because I was surrounded by music scientists, right? They were like, this is C major 7, going to C augmented, blah blah. I'm like, great, but it's not musical to me. It sounds like noise. I don't get it, right? But again, is it important to learn certain fundamentals? Yes, it is, right? Because what harmony is, what rhythm is. I think what's lacking is, how do you then take that individual and mold his dreams, right? Because the problem is this, right? The reason why I did the degree was because, to answer your first question, that was my security net. Okay lah, kalau apa-apa jadi pun, aku belajar universiti, aku ada degree, taklah teruk sangat. And then being from an Indian family, when my mom goes around, my son's got a degree in music, so it's done, right? Even though you're still a black sheep. That was the security net, right? But in school, I had a lot of tough because I did not want to play like Joe Pass, right? I did not want to play like, I wanted to like rock out.
Rithan, can I just ask you one question? Sorry, Rudy. It's very, to me, it's very intriguing at this moment, because if you had to do it again, would you do it the same way? Because
no.
Again, like I think you just established that you're conforming to our parents and to outside forces, you see? Because I think that's actually forming these thoughts. But what if these thoughts were not there and you had to do it on your own? Would you do it the same way?
I would probably do it different. If I know what I know now, I'll do it different.
I think that's going to answer this question. What would you do now?
If I would just focus on my strengths. I will take X amount of modules to enhance my career, because I can't learn everything, right? To get me from this particular stage to this next stage, right? And once I'm there, if I hit a particular wall or whatsoever, then I start going, start learning and start broadening my horizons. Because there's a lot of things that I learned in university I don't really use. I don't use orchestration anymore.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at, actually. So because we are all different, but every form of education, apart from the foundation, suddenly makes us generalizes everything, and we all, even a drummer, Rudy, you're a different drummer from Jerry Felix or Zaid or So again, like I said, we all have our own strengths. But I think you're absolutely right. So my advice would be, focus on your strengths, screw your weaknesses, because if you're going to be judged by your weaknesses, you're going to fail anyway. Coming back to jobs, so many jobs out there. But if you want to, come out of a music degree, hoping to be running a recording label or stuff like, it's not going to happen. You got to learn the ropes, because there are other things that's coming into question here also, which is your social skills, your interaction, your networking, there are other stuff that is coming. Because you know why? And Rithan said this much earlier. The difference between good and great now is probably 0.01. You know what I mean? Now? To be able to get to great, you know what I mean? Now? You need to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, doing your time, studying, so it's different. You were saying that there's an 8-year-old person who's like a TikTok, earning millions on TikTok, So I guess the degree is now so small. Are you willing to do that or not? So you should be, if you had a chance to work with a great for 2 years for free, I would do it. I would do it. Yeah.
I mean, just to pull out one of the greats, Yingmi Malmsteen, right? He literally from 12 to 1 particular age, he was practicing every day, and his break was only on Christmas, right? Is Yingmi an amazing R&B guitar player? I don't know. Or is he an amazing jazz? But he's really a kick-ass neoclassical guitar player. And nobody's going to be able to take that away from him, because he just focused and did that extraordinarily well. You get what I mean? I mean, I'd rather do that. Like, be really, focused on what I want to achieve. Daripada go young, you get me? You know what I'm saying?
What about you, John? I mean, do you agree with both Jake and Rithan?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things as well is the graduates, they shouldn't be trapped in this veneer of what appears to be success, because there was a lot of hard work and hustle that went into it in the first place. Understand the platforms that are out there and make the best of it to build on your craft, and also be able to work on different ways to market yourself and your strengths. You're seeing 16-year-olds with over 3 to 5 million followers on TikTok. What does that tell you? I mean, they don't have a degree. Neither are they old enough to even step into a college, for the matter. They've not even finished their SPMs, and they are already creating this kind of successes for themselves just by being authentic and sticking to their strengths. They know what they're doing, and that tells you a lot about that the application should be the same for the music graduates as well. You know your strengths, play it, put it out to the relevant platforms where you can be heard, and your craft can be acknowledged or recognized. But at the same time, don't expect to just come out into the industry expecting and just be sitting at the top of the mountain, because it's going to take a while. You've got to climb it first.
You mean the music mountain?
That's right. That's
right. Thank you, Jay. And John, I want to ask you, you were talking about platforms just now. So, and we have radio, right? We have radio. And we have, like, in terms of podcasts, you handle podcasts, right? You have your Joe Rogans and whatnot. Yeah. And becoming to be, and it was big, and it's becoming to be even bigger now. Can I say that podcasting is the evolution of radio?
It's I think it's a little. I wouldn't
say, John.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it an evolution per se, because they're still two very, very distinctly different platforms. What I would consider podcast to be is an extension of radio.
I disagree, John. Sorry, John.
Really?
I disagree. I completely disagree here. Podcast is actually. Sorry, John. Allow me to.
Please.
I've done so much radio in my life, and so to me, podcasting is actually subject matter experts speaking about great stuff. You know what I mean now? Like talking about Joe Rogan. If I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to David Goggins. David Goggins is this psycho guy who became a Navy SEAL and he ran 3 ultra marathons. I'm listening to stuff like that. If you want to make a relevance between radio and podcasts, then it's going to be tough because radio actually attracts a broader audience. Podcast needs to be subject matter experts talking about absolutely to a smaller audience, and then we monetize it, Radio, the only way for radio to survive, and I'm speaking about this from as an ex-radio man, they need to honestly get their heads out of where the sun don't shine, because a top 10, a top 30, and a top 50 are things of the past. Nobody gives a damn. Because back in the day, a top 10, a top 30, a top 50 was relevant. Nowadays, I have my phone, I got my Spotify playlist. Hey, I got my own top 10. I got my own stuff. Nowadays we need smarter announcers. Back in the day, we was, when I started off, we said, shut up, let the music play. Shut up, let the music play. But if you think about it, radio now needs that local centricity, needs smarter people. If you notice in Malaysia, the Malay stations are growing. The English stations are absolutely bad. And I say this with so much sense. It's terrible. They're reading researches and stuff. So we need smarter people on radio. But if you're talking about podcasts, if you're making a comparison between podcasts to radio, I don't think it's an evolution of radio. I think it's audio is growing with subject matter experts like that. How many of y'all actually turn on your phone and then listening to podcasts in your car? You know why? Because you're sick of radio. You're sick of it in its true form. It's the same music coming up. It's a rotation. Announcers saying, hey, blah, 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 coming up. We got this on hits, on mix, on fly, whatever, So to me, unless you provide the information that your consumer wants, it's going to end very fast. And here's the tricky part about radio. Think about it. We are all connected with connected cars, connected devices and stuff. It isn't very long when data becomes cheap, people are going to switch the radio off. Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, John.
Okay.
So the point, John, I'm trying to make is radio announcers shouldn't do podcasts. Let the podcasters do the podcast. That means if John does tattoos and does body piercings, I would like to hear how you do that. I would like to hear where the best is. I would like to hear the best tattoo. I will tune into you because of how narrow you have become. Radio itself is not supposed to be narrow. It's supposed to be broad.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And I think we're like reiterating this one word that we've been talking about the whole hour is like specialization in education, specialization in certain subjects. You want to talk about like podcasts. It's very narrow, but you get what you want.
It's happening today, right? Look at key opinion leaders, right? So, i.e., let's say for example, we take the MacBook, for example, right?
Yeah.
You can go to apple.com and go like, this is the new MacBook Pro. Check this out, right? You switch off immediately, right? You're going to YouTube. You're looking to a tech guy who has X amount of followers. You're waiting for that YouTube to go in before he can actually play. You're already looking at the likes and you're looking at the comments. If the first comment says wasted 3 minutes of my life, next, right? If the first comment says power gila, then you're gonna look and you're gonna get authentic information about the product, which is so real. It's the new MacBook, heats up or whatsoever. You get what I mean? And that's what it is today, right? So you have to really specialize on a particular thing or the hours that you have in your life to be a person that's with opinion that can lead a community, so to speak. You get what I mean? It's happening now already.
John, you're sitting the cusp of something great if you're handling podcasting, because podcasting is going to be the future. You think about audio. Audio has become so pivotal. You think about your Bixby, your Series, and every other devices has got an audio function. It's actually growing exponentially. But however, the content that the podcast needs to address is still not there in Malaysia. It's very very little. Few people like BFM do it really well. You're talking about Joe Rogan. You're talking about, some stuff like. But we need that. Malaysia predominantly is a country that is very Malay centric in the sense of language. I don't think that we have manufactured enough to address the needs of these people. I what do you call that? Consulted Indonesia, and Indonesia has got some amazing podcasters. They talk about everything from sex to how to make a gudang garam to how to make a, you know what I mean? So it's just amazing. There are people talking about ghost stories in here, but just that Malaysia is regulated quite heavily, so it's going to be very hard for us to be able to address that. Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely right. And on top of that, there's also that's actually a very, very huge barrier as to why podcasting will take a bit of time to grow, especially in finding the other thing also for podcasts would be also breaking that barrier of actually consuming podcasts, because right now a lot of Malay content tends to be a lot more visual and video skewed. So for us to actually go into subject matter that can work in a podcast format, that's something that needs.
Again, I disagree. I just think that there's not enough. There's not enough great content for that to be able
exactly.
One issue. Hey, by the way, a big shout out to Efni Johan. He's listening to us. He's got a baby boy called Eli. So congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah. And there's a couple of comments here. Like Samad say, love the explanation of the difference between radio and podcast is mass versus niche. And Efni says, good example of YouTube content is Adam Lobo TV. Yeah, Adam Lobo. He's my go-to tech review by a local. And he also added famous podcast in Malaysia, mostly cerita hantu.
Yeah, correct.
Which is okay. Which is actually okay. If it is fine. If you're addressing a certain, because the taboo subjects can be addressed by the podcast. That's what I'm trying to get at. And here we are pussyfooting around the stuff we cannot talk about. But podcast will be able to handle it. What are the questions podcast should be talking about? Anything from depression in men to men having, or women having this. We should be able to address that. Then you might not have 2 million people or 6 million people like Era, but you might have 5,000 people who are actually tuning in to get your content. And that's when you can monetize it, because you know why? Suddenly the economics is different already. Yeah.
So are we saying that we're not taking enough risks in podcasting?
Yeah, that's essentially we are trying to monetize it too fast. I remember Southern Cross Australia speaking to the CEO at that time, and it's taken them 3 years to even break even. You know what I mean? Because again, like I said, media agencies are still buying into the old spots and all that. Are buying into placements and stuff. But podcasts come in a different advertising model. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
correct.
I think that needs to grow, but it will happen. It will happen. We are just being a little. How would you say? We are just rushing the monetizing aspect right now. What I would say is just get as many podcasters as possible on your stock or what, and just drive it.
Build the content. Yeah.
Yeah, John, you should get this webinar on it too. Okay, it's been an hour. I just have one more question for all three of you. If you could pass on a nugget of wisdom to the next musical generation, what would it be? Start with Jake lah.
I think we've covered a lot lah. But if I could just say one thing, to me is. You have to work on your strengths. You have to find what makes you unique, and trust in that, because I'd rather be something, I'd rather be something unique than to be like a bad Elvis impersonator, That's what I'm trying to say. I think, and there's no substitute for hard work. Rithan covered that, which is if you have to practice 23 hours a day and sleep 1 hour, do it. You know what I mean? Probably in 3 years you'll be the best triangle player or kompang player or guitarist, So that's not going to change. There's no substitute for hard work, But find that angle, because you know why? Like I said, the differentiation is 0.01 now, 0.01, Then we're talking about the other aspect, which is the social aspect. Are you good in TikTok? Are you good in this? Are you good in that? Are you good in stuff like that? So that comes into play also. So to me, stay ahead of the technology or stay abreast with it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Rithan.
Man. I mean, maybe this is the advice I would give my 18-year-olds. Okay, first and foremost, remember why you started the whole music journey, right? Remember that.
True.
I mean, like I got confused when I along the way, because I forgot what inspired me to go through the practices, the hard knocks, the trials and errors and stuff like that, right? You need to be very focused on where you want to go, because there are a lot of choices. There are a lot of choices. In this age today, you need to be good at something, like really good at something. And talent is only 1% of the game. It's 99% hard work. You get me? And I consider myself to be untalented. Like, I'm bad in my year is bad, my harmony is bad. When I was in school, I was struggling. But there's only one thing that really turns me on until today. When I look at a guitar, I want to hear jing, 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 jing. Like, but that really turns me on. That's like, I live for that, right? And never deviate, and try and subdivide your times, your 20s to your 30s. Go out there and do everything, right? Just play the wrong gig, play in Paul's place, play in No Black Tie, just do everything. And let these people, because remember, you're an entertainer. It's the hardest job to do, because people are going to criticize you, right? And what you need confidence, right? It's just it's just, again, this is going to sound really corny, but music's like life, right? You need to have culture in your genre, right? If you want to be a metal guy, you have to wear black. People are going to be afraid of you. What's it? You're going to have a lot of ghost pictures and stuff. That's how it is, because you got to be very comfortable with yourself, and you're going to meet musicians who are better than you, and you need to know what you're going to bring to the table. And always remember that. If you remember that, you can keep that 18-year-old or 15-year-old alive. Your game. That's it. F what everybody else is saying. Just have that vision of what you want to do. You want to be a punk rocker? Be the best punk rocker ever. You want to be a grunge guy? Be the best grunge guy. You want to be a pianist? Be the best classical pianist, and have fun while you're doing it. Because music is damn best, actually. But this is
damn best. Nice. John.
Yeah. I think I'll keep mine really simple. It's just stay consistent, and don't let anyone tell you can't do what you want to do. You just gotta keep going up. So there's going to be a lot of haters, but just stay the course.
That's life.
Yep.
Thanks, three of you, Jake, Rithan, and John. I mean, I personally enjoyed the discussion we had.
Yeah, it was fun.
We touched a lot of points, serious points, and I mean, even though these are things that we feel that could change. I mean, 3 of us or 4 of us, we could actually do something about it as well. Hopefully, we have future sessions to actually deep dive into some of the things that we think could change. But at the meantime, stay strong, stay safe, rock on, and hopefully the audience loved the session and had something to take away out of it. Because I think having the experience of Jake, one of the pioneers, Rithan, John, amazing guys. I thank you all to be here tonight. Hopefully the audience loved it as well. I'm sure they did. This is going to be on replay. So once this goes on replay, please share this along. I think a lot of people need to hear what you guys had to say. And we just got to let it be real, All right. Thank you guys so much.
All right, cool, man.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Thanks for having us, Rudy.
Thanks for being
I
on.
can go back and sleep, you see.
See you guys.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.